Awesome. I don't know. I guess I could be considered a guest. It's really weird to be a guest, but here I am. I want to know where the,
Sorry
yeah,
to
go ahead.
I just need to make this announcement that we're recording, and we're going to put this recording online for future viewing due to our new public meetings law guidelines. Thank you.
Look at Lani protecting me. So she's telling me not to say something embarrassing, because out of my mouth next was going to be, where's the beaver that's stuffing their face? Because that would be my Zoom beaver. So the whole eating, my chief of staff, I had to tell them, like, I need a 15-minute break in the day so I could eat lunch, because I don't want to continue to eat on a Zoom. And like whoever just is the unlucky person that gets my lunchtime Zoom date line. So thanks for that, Lani, but too late. I already shared it anyways. I wanted to, Councilor Tivnon's here. This is her committee, so I don't want to take up too much time, but I just wanted to come, and I know most of you, I served with you, most of you on here in this commission and others. I feel like, I mean, today Ramona and I were on a Zoom together. I was on one with Beatrice this last weekend or last Friday, can't remember. Jonathan's my neighbor around the street, so he sees me and my daughter all the time. So I just wanted to give you kind of a quick update. I'm a little bit, I don't know, 6 weeks into the job. It's intense. And I will tell you, with the charter change, we were intentional about making the mayor's position full-time, because it's not possible to do all the elected work and to run the city. And so just for continuity for everyone else that understands, like the mayor's office retained like intergovernmental relationships. So working with IGAs with other, like the county, the park district, the school board, and making sure that like I'm the elected representative that can go to meetings during the day. So all the meetings with Metro, the meetings with transportation, the difference is that I have to speak with the voice of the council. So if I disagree, it's kind of great, because I get 2 bites at the same apple. I can speak as the voice of the council, and if I disagree, I could say, I'm the mayor, I agree with this one particular aspect. So pivoting between those things is a skill, but luckily in my day job prior to becoming the mayor, I worked for a healthcare facility that I did policy work. So I often would have to say, like, I'm here as a city councilor, I'm here on behalf of Virginia Garcia. So I had 6 or 7 great years of practices of doing those 2 things already. And, you know, we're hitting the ground running. We have an interim city manager, which has been a little bit challenging because we hired a city manager from out of state. He's really great, but like, as you can imagine, learning a new city and their government, like the form of government is not new to him. He's been a city manager for a long time, but how Metro, which is a really unique governing body, overlaps with the top of that, learning all of our new 650 plus staff and what that means. And then inserting a new structure with city officials, and him and I share, we have a door that goes between our 2 offices. So we talk, probably the mayor and the city manager, we talk about 5 to 8 times a day on average, whether it's just passing or intentional conversations, so we can make sure we're on the same page. I think most people, if they view it as he's running everything in the building and I'm like the external voice with our boards and commissions and groups and meetings, that's probably a good way to kind of simplify our 2 roles. The council, of course, there's a special election to replace me. We added a new city councilor in the charter, Councilor Hassan, that joined us. So we'll soon be a 7-person council. We did a 3-day intensive retreat in mid-January to talk about issues in the charter. And the city manager kind of joked with me and said, it's so crazy to me that the council that wrote the charter has so many questions about the charter they wrote. So what is really clear to me is that nothing is clear. And while we were all sitting around the table talking about the charter, we might have used similar language, but we meant different things. So for example, you want me to be a full-time mayor, you got to provide me with staff. I can't staff myself, I can't be at events. And so the council needs to think about that budgeting piece of it. So there's a lot of just pivot points like that where we all kind of meant the same thing. We wanted the mayor to be full-time, we wanted it to be successful, but you know, I need a scheduler and I need a communications person and stuff like that. So we're working through those nuances. And then we're going to start the whole process again with hiring a new full-time city manager. So we are in the process right now, the council, of reviewing the job descriptions, getting on the same page about what we need. Now that we've worked with a city manager, the kind of person we might want might look different than what the person or the ideas we went into hiring with the interim. So we are going to have that process probably, we're hoping to be complete by late May. So this time around, we want the community to be more engaged and understand the process. So we're going to develop questions, invite community members to participate, because this is an unelected person that's not held directly accountable to citizens, but rather to the city council, but you should have a say in who also is running the city. So we're kind of doing all of those things at once. I recorded my first State of the City speech. It's a little bit challenging this year to not be in person. It's normally a rather big event that everyone in the community can come to. So I asked our two newest city councilors, Councilor Tivnon and Councilor Hassan, to join me in recording pieces of that video along with our community partners. It's going to go live on March 4th at 10 a.m. on all of our social media channels. So make sure you are ready to go and watch that. I'm hoping we get at least, like, I don't know how many are here, 20 viewers. And I think we just have a lot of stuff happening: rebuilding of the fountain, replacement of the Friends libraries going into City Hall. Of course, you guys are probably well aware of Project C that is likely going to be built across the street from the library. One of the things that I think we need to do a little bit better is tell the community what we're doing. We talk about it at City Council, but the only way for you to really know is if you're paying attention. And even if you read the agenda, it's kind of hard to go. That was one of the most important pieces to me in hiring the city manager, was hiring somebody that understood communications and really could work on that. Because a lot of our disconnect with the community comes from us going and operating in our normal capacity and not telling people it's coming. So those are just a couple of my high level highlights. I think I just talked for like 7 minutes straight. So does anyone have any questions? Jim?
I noticed when you agreed on a salary for the new person you're hiring, that it was under 200,000, and I noticed that Tigard, who's a much smaller city, just paid over 200,000 to get their new city manager. So I'm just wondering if you think we're really going to get the person we want by not paying as much as a much smaller city.
I actually agree with you, Jim. And if you go back and look at our conversations around that, I was really like pushing and competitive for a higher salary, because we shouldn't be trying to get the cheapest person we possibly can. We should be trying to get the best. And ideally, we would be hiring someone at the very top of their game. We're not a large city in comparison to other cities across the country, but we are for Oregon, and we're a big regional player. So we've addressed the salary. They could possibly come in a little bit higher than that, depending on their experience. But I agree, we have to pay more to get the like quality manager we want. And especially if we want someone to have 15 to 20 years of experience. If you're coming from within Oregon, 20,000 or 200,000 might be a lot. If you're coming from like California or Texas or New York or somewhere with a higher cost of living, you might not be as attracted to come here for that salary range. And it's not super cheap to live here anymore. I think you guys are aware of that. Karen?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about a building being built across from the library.
Yeah, we're calling it Project Charlie or Project C. So it's part of our Metro Affordable Housing Bond. The council's had a couple work sessions on it. It's going to be a low-income senior building.
Apartments?
Yes.
Okay.
Eric?
You alluded to this a little bit earlier, but have you found anything so far in interacting with the city manager, the interim city manager, that would change what you're looking for the full-time manager?
That's a tough question, because I think we have a really good interim city manager, but I think what I really want out of the full-time person is somebody with a keen eye on future planning, communication, and really the public input piece is something we really need to go. Kurt's going to fix a lot, not fix, or address a lot of the internal issues that we've had with structure. We have some departments, you know, with 10 or 15 direct reports and other ones. So he's going to fix in his short time with us, like, or make some suggestions to us on that. But I want a city manager that has a little bit future thinking and really a keen eye on communication, and that can deliver complex issues simply, because so much of what the city does isn't complex like a math equation, but has multiple partners, you know, and all of these things, and somebody just to be able to like shoot the middle and tell people what's up.
Any other questions, anyone?
Wow, this is the easiest group I've talked to in a while. I thought you guys were gonna like chase me out the building here or something, so.
Konnette, go ahead.
So is Project C a done deal? I understand it means that the community center and gardens would be taken down.
It's not a done deal yet, and one of the things I've been chatting with staff about is, do we have a Q&A session for people to come and ask us questions? Because it is a frustrating piece, and I think we do need to do some serious planning. And in the council meeting, like, this isn't new. I said this in that meeting as well. We need a plan for the severe weather shelter. It's incredibly important. People watching our video feel like we put the building and, oh, we'll kind of figure out some of these other things. So we need to be direct with the community about where those things are going. The community gardens, as you most know, I live in Central Beaverton. I know how critical those community gardens are. So what work are we doing with our partners to figure out a walking distance from that place for the gardens to go? And I know I got an email from Adam and some other people about the age of the soil, and I understand that stuff too. But how do we make space for some of that same stuff? We don't know what the bottom floor is going to be retailed or not retail. We don't know what it's going to be programmed to do. So we might be able to save some of those capacity. I am not a fan of making the bottom floor the severe weather shelter or any kind of services like that, because I want to retain dignity for people that live in the building. And so where do we relocate that? We need a plan for it. It has to happen. And how do we look at some of the outcomes and really address that building is used as a community space? What are we going to do for community space? Where are we going to let people program, enter, come in? Like, it's not a big deal during COVID, but in pre-COVID times, it really is a big deal. Trying to find free space to use for meetings is really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are the top of mind. Those are the things I'm thinking about.
It's good to hear.
So is this a different project than the one that's replacing, let's see, they had private ownership of part of the parcel and the book house that's across the street from the library? It wasn't touching the community center at all.
Different project, same block,
Okay.
a stoplight apart. So there's a lot of change happening on Fifth Street.
Yeah, the VOSNAC hasn't heard anything about that as far as I'm aware of.
Well, and I think too, you know, what staff has told me and what I've impressed upon the other staff too, is that every neighborhood feels like Central Beaverton is their neighborhood too, because it's the library, the farmer's market, it's the place of gathering, it's restaurants. And so, you know, whether it's Highland or VOS or anyone else, like, those neighborhoods do a lot of interaction into this particular one. So how do we make sure that our communications going forward are not just to Central Beaverton NAC, but to everyone, so we hear a clear voice from the community of what people's expectations are for that space, since it is community space. I have a lot of concerns about the height. Having lived in the neighborhood, we don't have a clear process on infill. And so how high do we go next to a one-story building? Those kind of things are stuff that concern me, because I wouldn't want a 5-story building going up next door to me. Or at least without some thought and planning, so.
Gary, do you have a question? No? Looks like you scratched your head. Anybody else have a question? Any other questions?
Awesome. Well,
Larry?
yeah, feel
Thank
free
you
to reach out. My email address is public on the city website, so you can email me directly if there's questions or anything you want to answer. And we're going to start in my calendaring next month. We're blocking in a block 2 hours every week for community members to sign up for a 15-minute slot. If you want to talk to me directly and find it easy access, we're going to use Calendary for it. So it'll be really easy to do. So if you want to talk to me literally about anything, we're going to start opening slots for community members to book time directly with me.
Well, we'll see you there then.
Awesome.
All
Thank you.
right. Mayor, feel free to hang out or go do your mayorly duties. Okay, consent agenda. Does anyone have any amendments to the January minutes? Ramona, go ahead.
Yes, I think there's a correction, a typo that needs to be made. At least when I read through it, I didn't understand it. Well, the pages weren't numbered either. Page 4, which was in reference to Allison's presentation. The minutes read, Allison mentioned that the law just intends. So the second that, which appears in the second point at the top of page 4, needs to be removed.
I can take that out.
Yeah. And then,
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
and then on page 5, under Terry's report on land use, the second item, maybe it's supposed to be a rhetorical question, but wasn't sure. It says, now how to make information on land development and process more available. Maybe it could be reworded to the question arises, maybe. I misread it to begin with as know-how, and so that's needs clarification. Page 5. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Lani, did you get that? Were you able to make those small adjustments for clarity?
Yeah. And Ramona, since you're new, you can always just email those changes to me, and I make those edits the day of. So just know that in the future, I'm happy to make those changes.
Okay.
Okay. Sharon, go ahead.
So Lani, I have a couple, and I'll do this offline.
Right,
Are
yeah,
they-
as long as they're grammatical, just send those to me, and I can make those edits, and that doesn't impact your guys' vote. We got that cleared through our city recorder.
Right, they're not grammatical, but I'll send them to you.
I move that we approve the January minutes as amended this evening.
I second that.
I'm sorry, who was that? Eric with a K?
Yes.
Eric with a K, thank you. Okay, everybody in favor of approving the minutes as amended, raise your hand. We have a quorum and we have majority. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we're going to have a small change to the agenda. We're going to have a treasurer report with Eric with a K, so go for it.
All right. So the BCCI currently has 2 accounts. We have a savings account with a whopping $5 in it. We also have a interest earning checking account with $1,228.23. And there have been no changes over the past month or anything so far this year. That's where our treasurer stands. Any questions? Excellent.
Thank you. So I think we can make that a semi-annual or a quarterly thing even, or maybe just an as needed if there are any changes, or if anyone has any questions. But thank you for treasurer. And now we will go to the council liaison update with Allison, and you have until 7:05. Thank you.
Okay, I'll keep my eye on the clock. And it's great to see you all again. Hi, everybody, and thank you, Ellen. I had an urge to pipe in during the Project C conversation, but I did not want to encroach on the mayor's time, but I am going to add on to it now. Before I get to that one, I think it's also important, a couple other updates are the HRAC work, Human Rights Advisory Committee, had been working for about 6 months to pull together community input, deploy and then analyze a survey and come up with some findings that they presented to council on changes to how we approach public safety in Beaverton. And it covers a broad range of topics, everything from the 8 Can't Wait legislation, which you may be familiar with, that is actually playing out at the state legislature now. So that might actually be taken out of our hands to try and solve, all the way to additional types of training, to the safety resource officers that are in the schools, and should they be there, and are they serving the function that the students really need? Like some of these topics are easier to discuss and maybe come to decisions on. Others are much deeper topics that definitely need more community input, more input from other stakeholders as well. And that's pretty front and center for all of us. And I think especially for Nadia and I coming in as new counselors, when we have these issues that get brought to us that aren't just on the standing agenda, it's like, well, what happens? You know, when a community member sends an email in, or a band of community members come together around an issue, how does that inform policymaking? How does it make it on the agenda? How do we work our way through sometimes really complex issues? And how do we actually affect any kind of change? You know, as a counselor, to ask that question kind of makes you feel really green, but it's a very legitimate question. And the long and short of it was that there was no real process for that in the past. It was very organic, and it kind of, you know, it was like it would get talked about at a meeting. This is important. We should make time for this. And then sometimes it would slide right off for the next pressing thing. And we want to be more intentional than that. And we're talking about ways that we can do that throughout the year on this, as well as other very important topics like our climate action plan and other issues related to COVID response. And so we're going to be working through creating a goals list in the next several weeks, and then prioritize those around the year. And it might even mean making more meetings for the council to just have standing meetings at some point, either during the workday or at night, to outside of the council meetings, which are already pretty packed, to really dig into these. So I'll make sure that I come equipped with as much of an update as I can, just so that you know what's going on, and maybe tune in and call in and share your thoughts as well from your neighborhood's perspective. But also, you know, back to this Project C, like most everything, I'm midstream on almost everything going on. I'm starting to get in on the ground floor on some of the stuff going on in the city, but a lot of it has been in the works since before I joined. And Project C is a prime example of that, where, you know, we have this massive affordable housing bond through Metro. We've built out a lot of the units that we said we wanted to deliver to the city. And there was a recognition that in addition to affordable housing in general, we needed to have deeply affordable housing for seniors in the community. And that project in particular has some constraints. You really want to make sure that it's close to amenities, within walking distance of things, close to transit lines. And so way before I joined, that became the preferred place for it, the preferred site. And by the time I joined the council, we were to the point of saying, is this an up-down vote? Are we, you know, what are we going to do to the ground floor of it, and going that deep into it? Meanwhile, Highland heard about it. It's on next door. We're getting neighbors and residents that are emailing the city council now saying, what are you thinking? This is a great building. It's only 20 years old. We love this place. How can you possibly think about tearing it down? There's a community garden that's much beloved with 20-year-old soil that has been very carefully tilled. And this is not cut and dry. And I realized that I had a lot to learn. So what I've been doing is learning about the land process of the site selection, what other sites were considered, why this one was considered to be the best out of all of them, as well as the community meeting space and what the plans would be for that. I do know that the library is looking into remodeling and adding in more community meeting space, and there will also be some opportunities for that, I believe, at the PRCA, but I want to know where all of it could possibly land. And hopefully it'll be sprinkled throughout geography where, you know, it can happen not just in one place, but also what is going to happen to that garden? Does it totally go away? Is there any way to save the soil if the project has to go through? I know that might seem trivial, but it's not to a lot of people. And is there something we can do to honor that? And so I'm trying not to leave any stone unturned in understanding this. and the severe weather shelter. And what does that mean? We got to figure a lot of stuff out around this one. But I am absolutely available if you want to talk about this at length. You can email me, you can call me. And if there's anything in particular that you know about the project or about the history of that site that you think is worth mentioning, I would love to hear it. The more I know, the better. And like the mayor said, she used the word likely. This is likely to go through. I think it is likely to go through, but it's certainly not going through right now for me, and I believe for the other councilors, until we address the community's concerns. We've heard everybody. We've had a chance to really explain the rationale and make sure that every decision we're making is defensible. And that's where I'm at right now, is trying to understand all of that. And then as far as the future updates, I've got a running list in my head each week of what I'd like to share, or I mean each month, but I will try and tailor it to be things that are especially specific for from a neighborhood perspective. And even the things that might just be, still in the concept planning stage, just to give you a sense that they're coming. Anything that's baked enough. And then also just give you heads up, like, you might want to attend this council meeting coming up. We're going to be talking about it, and just make sure that you're very aware of those opportunities to kind of see what's happening behind the scenes on them, and also to weigh in as well. And then one little note. So I can't recall your name. I met you when I visited the Highland NAC, which seems like a lifetime ago when I was running for office. But it's so helpful to see what NAC you're from. And I'm trying to place all of your faces on which NAC you're in, and I think I'll get it by osmosis. But just to throw that out there, because I'm in marketing and communications by day, for everyone else that's on the call and for visitors, it might be kind of fun for them to see in the little line under your heads, what part of the city you're from. So it's just thought. And then the last thing on marketing is Project C is not a great name for helping the community understand what we're trying to do there. What is trying to be built there is a wonderful thing, and it's something we really need. The city has grown almost 25% since the community center was built in 2000. And so there's a lot more people, and there's a lot of people that desperately need to have affordable housing that don't want to move. And so we're particularly excited about trying to provide that for seniors that are in need of that type of service. So I believe that's it. I know that's kind of a long-winded statement, but if there's anything that you want to ask me now, I think we got a few minutes left. Go for it.
Maybe this is a little early for you to have a good sense of this, but to the sense that to the extent that how much of the council's business, like in the agenda each month, is internal, like comes from you guys, versus external, comes from everywhere else?
That's a great question. And our interim city manager, Kurt Wilson, has been working really hard to wrap his head around our agendas, because he's been in city government for years and years, and he's never quite seen it done the way that we do it here. And so he showed me this visual of where he broke out our agendas by department, and so color coded them, just to show that there would be a department that presented at the front of the meeting, and then like 2.5 hours later, like, why can't we couple those together so that those staffers don't have to stay all night long? Little easy, like no duh kind of fixes, like that's a great idea, all the way to, wow, March 19th has 10 things stacked on top of it. You're going to be there until 11 o'clock at night, and the meeting right before that has 3, and trying to right size them. Some of it is, updates on projects that are going on, and presentations from city staff that need to give us updates and get some decisions on, proceed as you're going, or we're going to come back with questions or for an ask. Other things are when there's emails that are sent into the city council and the mayor saying, you really need to talk about this. This needs to be something that makes it on. And then it's kind of a matter of, well, is this a roundtable or a work session or an agenda item? Is there an action here that we're voting on? And so it's a little bit of an organic process, but we're trying to make it way more systems processed where we're prioritizing things and then really setting them. So I think also so that the community will understand, oh, that's the quarter they're going to talk about climate, and that's the quarter they're going to talk about this or that. And then one other thing is on the, talking about externally, there's some like federal grants that we can go after for COVID that are very, timely. Then there's things like, our franchise agreements with our waste haulers and recycling companies is going to come due. So that ends up on there. And then every May is the budget. So it's a little bit of everything that goes into it. And I'm definitely still learning the ropes of it. But I think anything I can do to help make it easier for you to find and access those agendas, there's some really important stuff that goes down in them and some really great updates and presentations by staff who spent a long time researching their projects and putting together decks, PowerPoint presentations to talk about everything from cost to equity to impacts, and there's just a lot of great stuff in there. So, oh, and one last thing, and I'll shut up about it. If you go to the city website, you go to city government, and then you go to city council. I think you can also reach it by agendas and minutes too, is another option. And you click into the agenda for the last week's meeting. In there, you can click on the recording. And in the recording, the great thing is that you can take the agenda and it's got hyperlinks in it. And if you don't want to sit through the entire thing, there was just one line item that you were really interested in, you can click on that and it will take you to that point in time in the recording, which is really wonderful. So things we're trying to make it as transparent and easily found as possible. So I'd recommend playing with it because it really works. I don't know the magic that goes into the back end to link all of that stuff together, but it does really work.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? A great suggestion, Allison. I think about half of our guests right now have changed their names to add their knack, and that's very appropriate because when we were in person, we had our nameplates and we had that information right in front of us all the time. So thank you for that. All right, any other questions for Allison? Thank you for coming. Feel free to stick around or do councilly things as needed. Okay, we're going to do the traffic calming process presentation. Is Jabra here?
Yes.
Yes. Great. You have until 7:35.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jabra Khasho. I'm the city transportation engineer or traffic engineer. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the city's traffic calming program. This program actually was adopted in 1998. It was modified in 2000. And then the last modification was in 2015. So the goal of the program is to improve the livability and safety of residential neighborhoods. Basically, we are looking to reduce speeds on the streets and reduce cut-through traffic. So the program is a phased program. It's 3 phases. Phase 1 is the request phase. Phase 2 is eligibility and ranking. And phase 3 is project development. So in phase 1, to request traffic calming on any street, it could be your street or other neighborhood, you could submit a written request to the city traffic engineer requesting traffic calming, and you could say we have speeding or we have cut through or whatever the issue is. So this could be an email, it could be a letter. And you could file a form online, and you could fill the request online and we'll respond to anybody. So the minute we get the request, we share information with the requester, what the program is, and we also connect them with the police department to do some enforcement. Most of the time, the speeders on the streets are your neighbors. So if we do enforcement or education, what the police does is they have the speed trailer, the trailer that it shows what you're traveling at. So they'll deploy it and put it in the neighborhood to see how it works. After the police do this, we measure the speeds on the street. And what we look for is what we call the 85th percentile speed, which is 85% of the drivers drive at or below the speed. So to be eligible, the 85th percentile speed must be at least 5 miles over the posted speed limit. So we do a speed study, and if the speed is above 85, if the 85th percentile speed is above 5 miles over the posted speed limit, we'll respond back to the requester saying the street is eligible for the traffic calming program. And if it's not, we'll also tell them it's not. Every year we get a bunch of requests. And in the program, it says we have to consider all these requests by September 30th of each year. So we don't do anything from the time we get those requests until September 30th. Before September 30th, we rank each project that is eligible, and we have a ranking criteria in the program that we use. And the project with the highest rank will be #1 project and so forth. So after we do the ranking, before we do the ranking and take it to the Traffic Commission, we ask that the petitioner or the requester to submit a petition to the city. We send a blank form to them, and 51% of the people who live on the street must say, yes, we want to start a traffic calming program. So before COVID, people will go around with the petition and they'll get signature, and each household is allowed 1 signature. So the minute we get the petitions in, we rank the projects and we take the ranking to the Traffic Commission. The Traffic Commission will hold the hearing on it. And anybody could come testify, for or against the ranking that we chose. And typically, depending on how much funding we have and staff time, we work, 2 to 3 projects a year. Back in the days, we had 35 neighborhoods on the list. And you can't treat 35 neighborhoods even within 5 years. It's tough to do. So if the project is ranked and on the list, it will remain on the list for 4 years. And after 4 years, if it doesn't get funded or rank too high to be considered, then it will drop off the list. So this is the ranking part of it. So during that hearing, the commission holds on the ranking. They'll tell staff or direct staff to work with the 2 or 3 neighborhoods on the list. And then from this phase, we go to phase 3. Phase 3 is staff will hold neighborhood meetings and work with the neighborhood to come up with the plan that the residents would like to see on their street. We have certain devices that we could offer, but sometimes not everything could work for that street. There is certain things will not fit because of driveways and parking and other issues. So we work with the neighbors to develop a plan. And during that time, sometimes we come with several plans because each, you're at a meeting and each one have an idea. So we try to accommodate everyone. But then at the end, they have to decide which plan they want to go with. And we ask them, okay, this is what we come up with. You pick one. If they cannot pick a plan, we could, mix between them. Maybe they'll decide on one. It's really tough. At that point, it's really tough to have an agreement on one plan. But most of the time, after so many trials and showing the differences and combining them, we'll agree on one. I know we can't please everyone, but we take a poll at the meeting who wants this plan or who wants that plan, and that's how it gets decided. After we pick up a plan, we hold an open house. Sometimes people cannot come to the meetings. At least we give them a chance to come to the open house and take a look at the plan, and we'll get feedback on the plan. If we hear negative comments about the plan, we might go back to the drawing board and reconsider the plan and work on it some more. Most of the time, people are in agreement. I mean, I've been doing with the city almost 23 years, and I think twice we had to go back and rework the plan. So it doesn't happen often. Most of the time there is an agreement. So the minute everybody picks a plan and agree on it, then the city will do a poll. We have to poll that plan. And the program says that the plan must receive 67% approval from the neighborhood. And there is a project area. We define who can vote on the plan or who cannot. The criteria says is everybody who lives on the street, and then on the side street, we go 250 feet on each side street. If it's a short cul-de-sac, we'll consider the whole cul-de-sac as the voting area. So what the city does, we mail the plan, a response card that has 3 options. You could approve of the plan, you could check no, I disapprove, or you could abstain. If the person abstains from the vote, then we'll take 1 out of the total number. And the plan must receive 67%. And that 67% yes cards out of the total that goes out, minus the abstentees. So if we send out 100 cards, we must receive back 67 cards with a yes. And when we send that packet out, there is a self-stamped envelope. Basically, they need to just to check yes, no, or abstain, put it in that envelope and drop it in the mail. And this is explained also with the cover letter that they need to vote. If they don't vote, if we don't get the card back, it's an automatic no. And we tell them this. So that's after, let's say the plan gets 67%, then the Traffic Commission will hold the hearing on the plan itself. And it will be open to everyone. Anybody can come testify for the plan or against it. The Traffic Commission, they could do some changes. Sometimes people tell you, I don't like the speed hump in front of my home. It's closed from my window, I could see it. I mean, if it's few feet, the Traffic Commission will say, okay, can you move it few feet, and we'll move on. The Traffic Commission could ask us to go back and work on the plan if they see flaws in it. But so far, if the plan received 67%, I haven't seen any that did not go through. So after the Traffic Commission approves it, then it goes, their recommendation will go to City Council. City Council will approve their recommendation. It will go for construction. I mean, this process might take a year to get to that point. It's a long process. But the reason it's done this way. It's not just Beaverton. Other agencies do the same thing through the whole United States, Canada, even outside the United States. The reason why is when you put these devices in, they will stay. It's really hard to take them out. Even the program suggests that if somebody says, I don't want that device in front of my home, I want it to be taken out. Then they also need 67% of the people who live within that device to say, yes, it's okay to take it out. And so far, we had 3 requests and none of them was successful to take the traffic calming devices out. So people have to live with it. That's why we emphasize that high percentage for acceptance of the plan, because they go in and they don't come out. You know, I said in 2015 the program was modified a little bit, and the Traffic Commission went through discussing the percentages and what others do, and at the end they decided to keep the percentages the same way it is. The only thing they changed is they require that we do a speed study for the whole week. This is 5 weekdays plus the weekends. This way, we make sure that we capture every day, every moment, basically. Because some days, typically in general, the speeds, you know, if it's high, it stays high regardless what day it is at. But sometimes neighborhoods say, oh, you did the speed study on Tuesday and on Wednesday the speeds are higher. You did not do it during that day. So this way, you know, we're all covered and we have basically the facts, what's going on during the week. So that was the only change that was done. Also, the Traffic Commission said, you need to give people 3 weeks to send their cards back. That's the response card for the plan. Although in the past, you know, we'll give 3 weeks, and if somebody sends their card later on, we'll accept it. I mean, we won't reject anything. So prior to COVID, when we did the survey for the plan, typically we asked the neighborhood, at least the requester, you know, to go out and canvass the neighborhood, urging people to send their cards in. And we asked them that if somebody say, I lost my card or I didn't get one. So we'll check and we will mail them a card. We will not give them a card to give it by hand, because then people might feel pressured that they have to sign and give it to them. So we did this. We hand delivered cards to the last minute. Staff went out and hand delivered cards, so they'll get them signed and get the requested, basically, approval rate. So that's what we did. Most of the time, in the past, we used to be more successful, neighborhoods were more successful getting that 67%, because we treated all the streets that had high speeds at the time. People were all for it, you know, they want speed humps, they want traffic calming devices. And we treated most of those streets. So now what's left, streets that are borderline, you know, if the speeds are 5 miles over the posted speed limit or 6, you know, some people are willing to live with it. So that's why we struggle getting that 67%. At the next Traffic Commission, or let me first explain what we're doing during COVID. We had 2 projects just last year. One was on Bonnie Bray between Murray and Menlo, and the other one was Barlow between Murray and Wilson. We started the process, you know, we met in person, at least the first 2 meetings with the neighborhood. But then after the lockdown, we did those meetings online. We sent notices to all the neighbors, with the link that they could join the meeting, and that's how we went through it. And we did polling, if you want to ask, how do you like this device? Is it okay or not? We did polling through using Zoom. And we had not quite as much participation as in person, but it was close. So we were able to come up with a plan for both neighborhoods. But then when we mailed the plan and asked for the 67% to come back or the cards to come back, they haven't been sending them. And we cannot go canvassing. So what we did, we looked up the addresses who did not return their cards, and we sent them a new packet. We got some back, but not much. So we did it again. I mean, the last time we did, so far we got 1 card back out of 30 something. So this is the struggle that we have, is how do we encourage people to get those cards back? And if you have a way, I'm willing to try it. I mean, we're desperate. So in a nutshell, that's how the program works. And next.
Sharon, you have a question?
Jabra, I have a couple of questions. One is that you mentioned that other jurisdictions do this in a similar way. My first question is, I understand that an abstention decreases the denomination of your group, but a no vote, somebody not voting is a no vote. Is that what other jurisdictions do as well?
Yeah, some do. Some they mess with the percentage. Like Washington County, they follow exactly what we do. If you go to Lake Oswego, they say, okay, 51% is good.
So somebody not voting is equal to a vote that says no.
Yes.
Oh, that's, I don't know, I'm trying to wrap my brain around that. The other one is that in a household that is a rental, that is 2 votes, correct?
Yes, for a rental, the owner will get a card and the renter will get a card.
Okay. I found it very helpful to watch the Bonnie Bray video that's online in addressing a lot of what you just addressed. I found that very, very helpful. And in addition to the polling, which was what kind of traffic calming do you want? Do you want cushions versus digital speed readouts or things like that? And the vote, and whether to, in that case, go Murray to 141st and 141st to Menlo, or to group that all in one. So how many people actually attended that process that were polled?
It's the people who attended the meetings. I don't have the numbers with me.
Okay, because I know that there were questions by at least maybe 2 people there. So I guess my main question was around the absence of a vote equals a no vote. And I don't know what the workaround is on that. And maybe other people do.
Okay, the reason why it's this way, if people did not send their cards and out of 100, you got 25. Do you think this is a legit approval? If you don't consider it a no, I mean, it's really tough to accept it as they all are in agreement, because you don't want to put them in and then complaints will start coming in and you have to take them out.
All right, Adam has a question. I see your hand is. Go for it.
I got a question. Okay, I drove TriMet bus for 6 years, and in Southwest Portland, off of Beaverton Hillsdale Highway, there was some calming devices, and I want to say that to put calming devices on a bus route, in my opinion, is not a very good idea. We had to slow down practically to a stop every time we got to one of those bumps. That's very uncomfortable for the passengers, and it slowed down our rate of getting to Portland. So I don't know at this time in Beaverton if there's any calming devices or bumps in the road where there are bus routes. But I would just want to point out to you that if, when it comes to that, I think you got to be very careful. And my vote would be, if it's on a bus route, you don't put calming devices on it, because I think it just slows everything down and it's uncomfortable for the passengers. And I can tell you from my own experience driving a bus, it wasn't much fun going over those bumps every day and trying to keep on time with the schedule. So some thoughts to think about.
Yeah, typically, you know, if the street is a primary emergency route, and most of the time all arterials and collector streets are primary emergency routes, the program does not allow any speed humps on those or traffic calming devices. We also work with the fire department. You know, when we on the plan too, we ask them to join us, to join our meetings and explain their point of view, because at the end, you know, response time is very important. That's why we use speed cushions now, not speed humps, which is actually it's a speed hump, but it's got the gutters in it where a fire truck or a bus could straddle that without slowing them down too much.
Yeah, I've seen them, yes, and I understand fire trucks can get through there pretty quickly without slowing down.
Okay, we're going to move on to Adam. Sorry about the mix up there. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. You know, on the consent process, it seems like it's designed for it to fail and it to use a lot of staff time. Highland had 3 phase 3 processes in the last couple of years, 130th, Barlow, and Wilson, all failed. And, you know, it kind of reinforces the citizens' unfortunate phrases that government doesn't work when this happens, especially when they get really close. And I would encourage you to, you know, look at, you know, people maybe don't vote for the governor sometimes, but that doesn't make the governor less legitimate. And if people don't show up and be part of the process, we need a way for the rest of us to have safety. 2 of the 3 of our previous projects had schools in them or around them. And a lot of people were concerned about safety. And it would just be nice if maybe we could separate the consent process from the budget process, because it's just designed to fail, and I think it wastes city time. And that's all I've got on that.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, Konnette, and then Eric.
I agree with that, but I was wondering with Mr. Khasho about your feelings about what I'm noticing is that that the entire neighborhood has these traffic issues, and going street by street, I'm not sure will be a good solution for. I'm with the Highland NAC, so for instance, my street is. People come down Hargis, turn on 136, turn on 31st, turn on Highland, turn on Hart to avoid all the stop signs. And and come quite fast. That would be several different project requests from what I gather. Do you have a solution or a suggestion for how to approach a neighborhood-wide type of a problem?
You know, a situation like you're in, if the neighborhood feels they're speeding through this 3-4 streets, yeah, we could combine them together. And sometimes if we treat a street and there is a parallel street that we feel traffic will shift over to that street, we'll include them in the plan too. So the process, the program is set to treat more than just, it's not just one street only.
It just seems like then a solution might be even more difficult, and that's when there's multiple areas of the same neighborhood, and a solution for one street might be not advantageous to another street. But and then I also had a question about which of the devices for a neighborhood do you feel does have some merit to it?
To be honest with you, the best device to slow down traffic and reduce cut through is speed humps. I mean, yeah, we use islands, we use curb extensions, but nothing works like speed humps. We like to have a blend of devices. It helps, it gives it a softer feel. I mean, those planted islands, they look good when they're put in, but islands alone does not work. It needs some additional speed humps with it or other treatments to make it work.
What would you think about the opportunity to look at an entire neighborhood versus a street by street process?
We have to evaluate it as a whole. We'll take a look, and we'll also, sometimes you have to check. We do license plate studies, they call them. And we check, is there cut through, or it's just people who live there are using the street. Sometimes, it's a perception that drivers are going fast. I mean, we do the speed study and no, we don't have this, but but we could take a look if you tell us. And the thing is, if your neighbors agree with it, it's got a better chance. Because you request to treat some street that you don't live on, but those people are okay with it. People accept speeds differently. So that's where it becomes difficult, And like Adam said, this is, you work with the neighborhood and they're all concerned about safety. I agree with you. That's the goal of our program. But if truly people are concerned about safety, why don't they mail their cars back?
Well, I think we've had the same kind of issues as far as events and things like that. That's people are now have their preferred method of notifications, and multiple media sources are frequently needed to really reach out these days.
I agree with you. I mean, I wish I have the emails of the residents who live on the street, and then you could email it to them. Because to be honest with you, people these days, they don't pick their mail every day. I mean, they do their billing online, payments online. Maybe once a week or twice a week, they'll go check if there is something in there or a packet that forced them to open the mail.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Eric's last questions, and then we'll move on.
So do you have a sense of what the response rate typically is?
I've had response rate from, 99% to, some 68, 69, typically between, around 70%. That's a good response rate.
So in these cases where things aren't passing, you are still getting more than 2/3 of the people responding. You're just not getting 2/3.
No,
yes.
what I'm saying, this is what the people who are sending the yes, response rate. I mean, I hate to, to give you a number without checking my previous records on, but typically, if you get, let's say, 68% yes, maybe there is 10% no that we received. It's not much, typically the noise, you don't get much no cards.
That just seems like that would be a good gauge of whether or not the current system works. If you have a 65% return rate and everyone says yes, you're still not passing it, even though every single person who voted is a yes. And you can assume that probably not all the no votes are a no. People just don't vote.
Yeah.
So have you looked at doing like maybe you hit a certain minimum threshold and then it's a majority of that?
The rate that I gave you, those are the neighborhoods that they made it like previously. For 1/30th, I think it was around 40% that came back. So it's not that high.
Okay, I'd like to make a formal request of the Traffic Commission then to have some statistics going back 5 or 10 years. How many traffic calming proposals went through? How many got to phase 3? What was the response rate and what was the yes and what was the no? And something visual we can see so we can decide personally and for our neighborhoods, does this warrant more investigation?
Yeah, we have to go through the records, we've been doing this for a long time. So we have to go through our records, like 20 years of records to get these numbers. It's going to take some time to do it.
Maybe 5 or 10, but it's obviously an issue. It was an issue that was brought to our attention by a community member, and we've been asked to look into it. And I would like to see some statistics before we delve any further. So if at all possible, maybe in the next month or two, you could have the information forwarded to us and we could look at it and then come back with any questions.
Okay, well, we can do that. One thing I want to mention is the next Traffic Commission is on March 4th. It's a Thursday at 7 p.m. The Traffic Commission is the meeting, basically it's a workshop on traffic calming. We have new commissioners on the commission that we're going to explain the program for them. And I talked to the chair today and we will be opening the workshop to the public. If somebody want to speak and have ideas, they could speak to the commission too about it.
Okay, Birgit, do you have a quick question before we move on?
Yeah, that was actually part of my question. How do we, if we have ideas, where do we send them? Where do we ask that? But is that the only place to go to the Traffic Commission, or could we send it to you and you actually really look into it?
If you send anything to me, I will forward it to the commissioners. Yeah, you can do that. But this is not a public hearing. Typically, we accept written testimony, for a public hearing, and that's the process we go through. But for the workshop, it's a workshop for the Traffic Commission, but it's open, So if somebody sends me something, the Traffic Commission will receive it.
Yeah, I was my thinking about it was, like we have suggestions. Possibly, I mean, you heard several people already saying certain things, but one of them could be also that instead of doing it with little cards that you never get back, you can do this online. It's just other means of doing this. I don't know if that helps at all, or if there is any thing to help with that, or suggestions to be sent somewhere. So, like that actually are looked at. That I'm not quite clear. So that was my question. And
yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you, Jabra. I hope to see you again. We can continue this discussion.
You have a question.
All right.
I just have a comment. I don't know if anyone else had a question, but I think this gets to a bigger issue that our city and every other city is grappling with, which is methods of communication. And the comment made earlier about how there's so many different forms of it now. How do you cut through the noise and get to the residents? And this is something that we're really trying to wrap our heads around as we're really trying to get more community input across a large number of topics. And I'd like to do some research on best practices coming from other cities, but there's also, you know, like the opt-ins on cell phones where you can opt in to get text messages. It seems like something where when you move into a neighborhood, you know, getting a flyer saying welcome to the neighborhood and, you know, here's things you can opt in on. One of them could be opt in on road calming efforts in your neighborhood, or, you know, not so that you're getting spammed with every single thing that's coming out from the city of Beaverton, but maybe you could select the things that you would absolutely want to see. Maybe there's something where they could ensure that there's a threshold of at least that percentage of people within a neighborhood that are opted in for that, or and then do the mailer as well. It's just, and I know there's a lot of front end work to get something like that off the ground, but the maintenance of it and the actual deployment of that seems like it's in the realm of possibility to think through ways we could use technology to help us get the word out more. So I don't have a solution for it, but I'll keep agitating on it along with several of the other counselors who are interested in trying to find better ways or more effective ways to get in touch with residents on topics like this.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on. This is obviously, oh, Terry, okay, last thing, promise.
Well, if the majority of members here are interested, we could approach the Traffic Commission meeting on March 4th with some thoughts brought to them by BCCI. If there's a consensus on that, we could do that. Okay. And I guess when I'm hearing a couple of things that I think maybe captured some thoughts that we've actually discussed a year ago. And one of them regards the mailer that doesn't specify that, I think in quite specific enough language, that if you don't vote, that if you fail to forward your ballot back to the city, that automatically counts as a no. And I think that's something that maybe we could bring to the Traffic Commission as a recommendation, that they enforce or reinforce that message on the survey ballot. And also another thought was, the second thought is that I think tapping into what Eric said, maybe reconsidering the percentage of yes votes that need to be tallied. Right now it's 2/3, and maybe it could be a simple majority of positive votes for a project to succeed. So if those are two messages that we could bring to the Traffic Commission, and if there's general consensus in the group on those two, I'd be happy to present that on March 4th.
The only thing
I would add, really great. I mean,
go for it.
I would just add Ellen's point that we need the data too. I mean, we need to understand what the numbers are before.
Okay, great.
This is obviously a hot button issue, Jabra. We have a lot to say about this, so I think we need more. We need more. But can someone raise their hand if you would be interested in maybe speaking with Terry at a subcommittee meeting for this to present to United Front? Anyone? Terry, Eric, Sharon, Frosty, Rick? Anyone else? Lani, could you make that happen?
Absolutely, and I see, and also Adam, we can include NAC leaders as well. I'm not sure I caught everyone though. Can we just go through that one more time to make sure I caught everyone? Thank you.
Oh, Konnette.
You've got enough. You don't need me. So I live in a cul-de-sac. So.
So sometime next week, probably. Okay.
Okay, definitely. We'll make that happen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for your input. This warrants a lot more investigation, so I'm glad to see so much energy behind it.
Good job.
Thanks to Jabra too for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into our existing subcommittees. We have not had any matching grants been submitted, so we haven't had anything to discuss, but Konnette would like to speak about something in her neighborhood. is working on. Konnette, you have about 5 minutes.
Okay, really quickly. I had a proposal. I haven't submitted a grant yet, but based on your feedback, I could. The Highland neighborhood had a workshop series on natural gardening last year, and we made it through 3 of the series, but had a remaining series that we were looking to doing this year sometime, and have decided to use a Zoom format. My question was, maybe we had talked about cooperation at previous meetings between NACs, and I'm wondering if as a Zoom project, this could be opened up a bit to include other NACs and what you all would think about that.
I want to say something right away. That is such a super cool idea. I already was watching that last year and was really upset that it wasn't an hour neighborhood and stuff. So it would be awesome if it was open for NACs across. So that would be very cool. Yeah.
Then my question is, are Mondays good days? I know it's hard to find a day. That was what the original series was on a Monday, and I know that the Mondays seem to work for our partners. We're partnered with Tualatin Soil and Conservation and the Columbia Land Trust to put this as our speakers and presenters, and those seem to work good for them. And I could make up a proposal and either bring it back or just proceed with it. As a Zoom meeting, I'm not sure what the cost would be, but I don't think we wouldn't be providing snacks, of course, and it would be just Miles and Lani helping me put it together over the Zoom process. But I think it's a great presentation. The backyard habitat certification process has just come to Washington County, so it's also a way to kind of for them to reach the land trust people, coordinate that program, and it also helps them in that way.
I want a Zoom snack.
You want a Zoom snack? And Zoom hand sanitizer. Yeah, maybe we could work something out.
It looks like you have a lot of support here. So I would say go ahead, bring it back, or go straight to Miles planning.
And I just wanted to have all of you think too about some unique ways we could help advertise this event. I think we could have a lot of fun with this. I think there's a lot of interest. And so we would really welcome any ideas you have. We have a lot of fun tools in our toolkit, but I really think it's the creative ideas that you can help bring to the table. So be thinking about some ideas and send them my way or give me a call or email. And I would really appreciate it.
And I'd hate to push this a little bit, but I want to kind of wrap up the presenters. As far as a May 3rd or a May 10th meeting, do you think it might be possible for me to develop the proposal around one of those dates?
People can also reply in the chat if they have a preference.
Okay, that would be great, and then I'll take that, Lani, and I'll get together with Lani and we'll figure that out, official date out.
Konnette, thank you for your passion. I can tell this really means a lot to you. So thank you for bringing it to the group.
Welcome.
Okay, Events Subcommittee. Joe, we have a lot to talk about, the voters forum.
Okay, just bring you up to date. We've settled on a date for the forum. It's April 29th. And I have contacted 5 of the past co-sponsors. I think Beaverton Chamber, some leadership has changed. We should get the Beaverton Chamber on board. The Downtown Association is definitely on board as co-sponsor. I've not heard from the Diversity Advisory Board. And the League of Women Voters, Eric, did you say that they were going to do something on their own, or they is a possible, I sent them something, but I have not heard back.
I have yet to hear from Kathleen. I'll get a hold of her tomorrow, Joe.
But what's that?
I will get a hold of Kathleen tomorrow.
Okay, all right, great.
I'm thinking they're probably going to be on board.
Okay, and then the Washington County Public Affairs Forum, that'll happen, but the Brad Gavakian has sent my email off to one of the other coordinators. So that's working. We'll be able to get that tied down here pretty soon. Eric has got some questions already from the Downtown Beavers Association. And then Lani, you said the postcard, that we can get a notice on the postcard, but we have to have the details into you by the 10th of March, correct?
Right, yeah, and I'll send out a copy to the full board so you can take a look at it, because we're on a really tight timeline. We'll have to finalize the copy to get it to the translation team before we have the candidate filing deadline confirmed with all the candidates' names, which is a little early for us, but it is what it is.
Okay.
We'll make it happen.
All right. Eric, do you have anything else?
You got it, Joe. Thanks.
All right. Well, that's it, Ellen.
All right, then Eric Schmidt has again agreed to be our moderator. Thank you. It wouldn't be a voters forum without you, so thank you again for agreeing to moderate.
Be careful what you ask for.
Thanks, Eric. We appreciate you. We all do. Okay, Land Use Subcommittee, Terry, take it away.
All righty, thank you. Lani passed along 2 different attachments to your agenda tonight. One should look somewhat familiar. It's the your NAC and land use involvement, and it has it's 3 pages, and it has a number of topics, and then it has some links mentioned to documents that are already on our NAC resources page. And then it also has a couple of entries called new content. So that's what we need to talk about tonight, is new content. So that's one document. And then the second document is actually an organizational structure for this project. And it's entitled 2021 BCCI Land Use Subcommittee Work Plan. Need help from full board to accomplish some of our goals. Did everybody get that, Lani?
Well, I was waiting for your approval to send that out, so I'm sorry I didn't send that out. I can do that.
I did respond, but maybe I didn't send it out early enough. Sorry. Okay. Well, so not everybody got this. Nobody got this.
No one's got it. I apologize.
Okay. Well,
but I can email it right now if that's helpful, or is that too late to the group?
Why not? You know, I'll keep talking.
Can you just share it on the screen from an electronic copy?
I can do that too. Yeah. So how about I do
that?
How about I do both? So I'll quickly email it out to all of you, and then while Terry's talking, I'll then quickly share it.
Yeah. So hopefully you've seen the other document, because that has been in its relatively current form for about a month now. And it includes the general topics regarding land use that we hope to use on our new web interface with folks. And again, the whole thought was to reorganize the resources that are already existing on that page, but are embedded in longer documents. And the thought was, if somebody wants to know more about Beaverton's comprehensive plan, they don't want to have to watch a 30-minute video where the comprehensive plan is covered for 4 minutes of that. So what we're going to do is link them right to that section of a longer let's say in this case, I'm assuming a presentation, where we can link them right to that 4-minute section where it talks about comprehensive plans. And so when I'm talking in this document about links from documents on our resources page, that's an example. And that land use handbook, in case anybody has not looked at the land use handbook, it has just about all the answers in there on land use, but it's spread among a document that's 40 pages long. So again, the thought was, if somebody has a question about, well, how do I figure out zoning versus comprehensive plans? They could link to where the paragraph is or the pages where it talks about zoning under that topic versus the comprehensive plan. So that's the thought process behind this. And so my point about the links, now I'm talking content. The content included in these links largely exists in one place or another on that NAC resource page. And what I did is I went through the outline that we created from the subcommittee, talking about topics about land use that we think that should be emphasized for members of NACs that are newly entering the land use phase, or maybe they have a particular question that they want to have answered. This list were topic areas that came out from the subcommittee. And I also went through all the documents and found links. And where there wasn't a link, I included it as new content. So that's what I'd like to emphasize as a task. The next task for this project is to get some volunteers to generate new content. And so I went through, again, this 3-page list that you already have. And I found I kind of group things. If you have this paper in front of you, the groupings are understanding zoning, understanding the land development process, understanding the NAC's role, and understanding your role. And then there's a final section on traffic calming, but that's kind of separate. So of those land use related topics, I found gaps in the content from the NAC resources page in 3 instances under the understanding land development. I found 3 areas under understanding your NAC's role, and 6 areas under the topic, the general topic, understanding your role. So the task at hand is trying to see if there are some volunteers that would be interested in developing this new content. And I think what Lani has created is showing you on the screen here is that, especially I want to develop tools. Think about, this doesn't have to be just words. In other words, we could create videos, we could create, she suggests interviews of people, who maybe NAC chairs who have experienced interfacing with the Planning Commission or the City Council regarding their a land development project that went before there. There's a number of different formats that this new content could take. And in fact, maybe the more interactive that content is, like a video, that could be a very good educational tool compared to words. And, it could be a chart. In other words, the new content doesn't have to be just words. I guess that's the bottom line. So with that, what also, Lani, can you move up to the top so we can see what your columns show? the titles of your columns? You can't move it? Okay. All right. Well, I'll read it to you. The first column to the left there where you see the words how to testify. That's called project or activity. The next column over, which is blank here, is the timeline and status. And I'll pass along to you that Lani is hoping that this project can be wrapped up in about a month. So I think we need to take some action on this. The next,
it's the screen is moved up on my side. So can you guys not see the first page?
I can't move it on mine.
You can't? Oh, that's weird.
Can everybody else see that?
No.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, bottom line is we need a timeline, which is within a month. And then we need, the last column is who's willing to accept this assignment to help us kind of get around third base and head to home base on this project. So let's talk about understanding the land development process. Going back to my 3-page document before. I had a new content as common land use actions explained, and how to discuss the topic of staff reports, decisions, and conditions of approval. And then finally, the last section under that is describing appeals and party of records. So is anybody particularly interested in taking on that task?
And with the viewing Lani's screen, I can't see people waving at me, so just go ahead and shout out and communicate directly.
All right, we'll skip to the next. You can still think about it and jump in. All right, the next grouping is understanding the NAC's role. And in particular, we're looking for new information on deadlines to comment and how to testify based on the type of land use activity. And I think there's a little bit of this in some of the documentation on the resource page, but I thought it just needed to be more in depth. Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay, very good. Thank you. And then another topic there was how to explain a party of record, which is necessary when you're appealing a project to make sure that you are a party of record. And then how to create an effective NAC comment letter. And that's like a primary topic that was brought up. Anybody want to volunteer for that? And I'm figuring more than one person may want to do this. You know, this might be something where a small group could get together and work on these.
This is a heavy lift for this committee, but this is really important. This is why BCCI was created. So let's help Terry out. Come on, let's see your hands. Let's hear your voices.
Well, I'll go on to the last one, or the next one. Yeah. This is understanding your role in the land development process. And again, this is just the sections where there's new content needed. And this should be an easy one. How to sign up for citywide development notices. That was mentioned a couple of times as an important means by which people can get involved in and knowledgeable about land use. And here's another section, new content needed on timing of comments based on the type of land use activity. For example, it's different when you comment at a different point in the process when it's a type 2 versus if it's a type 3, you have multiple opportunities to comment. So that's what that is asking for. And then And then also that one, I also tapped into the being a party of record, because if you're involved in an appeal, you need to be a party of record. So that's, and then finally in that section, this one is again a popular, I think a lot of people have thoughts on this. Tips on participating in neighborhood meetings and writing effective comment letters and providing oral testimony. Again, that's something that's brought up a little bit in some of the documentation, but I think writing effective comment letters is a really good topic for folks to delve into and maybe give some examples. And then finally, tips on addressing staff, the Planning Commission and City Council using examples. So anyway, those are the areas where I'm asking for your assistance in helping us kind of fill out the final
May I ask
content on this.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
What kind of a format are you looking for these to be in? What would you like? What is your preferred?
I think, by the way, I think whatever format you think would be most useful. For example, when the topic is writing an effective comment letter, you know, you could write about writing a letter, or you could have a letter that you think, or create a letter that you think hits all the right notes. So I think each new content may beg for different ways of addressing it. You know, like I said, a video could be a really good way of explaining how to provide effective testimony, let's just say, you know. So I think what I'd like the group to do, the individual or group, is to come up with some suggestions. And I suspect that the group will embrace whatever suggestions you come up with.
Well,
And if it is a narrative, you could just come up with a narrative.
Given that Lani's got me involved in another project right now, my bandwidth is a little short, but I'd like to consider this. If you'd give me some time to think about it, I think that'd be, I didn't realize that that's what you wanted to talk about tonight. So pardon my ignorance.
No, it's fine.
It's going to take a little bit of research. You've got a lot of links in here, but you still have to go back and look at that and then develop some kind of a concept around that research.
Yes. And I purposefully didn't want to have a preconceived notion about what would be the best way, because again, I think I want to leave it up to the creativity of this group that maybe you have some great thoughts about how we could, again, communicate. You're communicating with NAC chairs primarily, but we're also communicating to the general public, because again, the way this is formatted, we're going to be targeting our audience to the generalists, the people who are interested in a little bit of information, and then also those who are very much interested in the in-depth information. And again, that's how my original list is formulated, that we have the high level, mid-level, and very detailed level.
And the primary vehicle here is going to be the website.
This is all going to be on this is rejiggering our NAC, the NAC portion, land use portion of the NAC website, of the neighborhood website.
Jim Persey has his hand raised. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was just, of course, I'm on the Land Use Subcommittee, and we have quite a few members on there. You know, with the complexity of what we're trying to do, I was wondering, you know, you're trying to go to the general BCCI committee, but I'm not sure, you know, when they look at what we want, and it looks a little daunting. I mean, it looks daunting to me a little bit, trying to figure the formats out. I also had a concern about all these different formats, but maybe it'd be easier if we had sort of a common type format. I mean, I look at this and it does not look like an easy job, and you know, I've been doing land use for a long time. So that was just my thoughts. And
I totally agree with you. And I'm hoping that this is something that a web designer will understand and be able to turn into something. Again, that's my hope.
Yeah, and I'd like to just chime in too. I think we were just hoping that you could take a look at, we have a lot of the right information. It's just all over in different places. So it's reorganizing it and getting it into a organized fashion that makes sense from you as the community. How would you access the website to find the information? And we have an amazing web team. Miles and I can work with our web team to do that work. That, you know, that's what staff will do. What I'm looking to really hear from all of you is what makes sense from your lens of when you were to, if you were to go find information, you didn't know much about how the city government functioned, or if your neighbor asked you a question about the land use process, how would you tell them to go navigate and find the information? I think that's where you're really helpful.
Well, I'd be willing to do that, but the fact that you're only giving us a month to do it, I think that's a little bit, I think we need to extend that deadline just a tad to give us all an opportunity to wrap our heads around it too. You know, Terry lives and breathes this stuff. Jim Persey wrote it in the beginning. The rest of us have, you know, we're catching up.
And there's also a BCCI bylaws project going on concurrently. So the people
tell me about
time
it.
I wasn't going to put you on the spot, Eric, but
Thanks.
Thank you for your service in everything.
Lani, is there a reason for the timeline? Do you have a reason for this?
No, so the 1 month, I don't think we said 1 month, did we?
Well, yeah, you said February or March.
Oh, for the website content?
I'm sorry, you said March or April.
March or April. Yeah, I was thinking like springtime. I was just kind of looking at how do we break out this work to get it all done in the year. The land use training 101, we always do that. Typically when we don't have a voters forum, we do that in a non-voters forum year, but we got to do both this year. So I was just trying to kind of break things up so we don't lump it all together during the similar time frame. So the voters, the land use training would be like in the fall. So working on that piece would then probably gear up in late spring, late to summertime to get it ready to roll out to the public in the fall for that event.
Can we get clearer guidelines from your web designers? You know, like when do they need the requirements? And how long do they need to have a lead time to reorganize this? And then you know, it's funny because I can probably go from the website perspective, but I'm like Jim said, I'm like daunted. I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what this all means. And should we have form letters? But you know, like this is all computer thought, which doesn't help in this particular case so much as I think it would be better to, I mean, you know, I almost think somebody has to hold my hand, like Terry, I work with Terry or something. So, you know, like I don't feel like I could do this, like looking over it and then figuring it out. I need more time. I would need more time. Not that this is my highest interest anyway, but that's what I see. You know, I would maybe meet with Terry and then we go through this and Terry shows me and I like, oh no, this is wrong. I mean, no, let's think like this, and I can give computer expertise or how that could look like, but I don't feel like I could do this, like Jim said. It's like daunting.
And I will admit that I am not a web designer, nor am I really certain what what they do. But I'm hoping that, I think that's a missing link for me too. So I want to know if what we're doing is even implementable from a web designer standpoint. Does anybody know web design of this?
Well, that I might be able to tell you, but I don't know anything of the content. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, as a developer, I can tell you what could be implemented, but again, we probably need to talk to the developers on what their time is, right? Because anything is possible, always, but how much resource do we really have, Lani, for this? You know, I think that's important to know. How much time would they want to spend on that? And then we go from there. We also can curtail our requirements according to what they are willing to do.
Right. And I think the next step is we're meeting with them after we got through tonight's meeting. But part of this is we were thinking it was just moving things around on the content we already had. So that's why we thought it was not as heavy of a lift, knowing that we were just restructuring the different documents in a different, just in a easier, more navigable, easier way to navigate from the community standpoint. And also we wanted it to be set up from a NAC. There's two different audiences. One's from just the general community audience lens, as well as, you know, the NAC leadership audience. So we've got two different areas that we would be updating because they're, you know, different targeted audiences. And I did notice, Adam, you mentioned about having Spanish translation, having that be a priority, and that's definitely, you know, would be in the conversation to have with the web team as well.
Rick has had his hand raised very patiently. I'm going to bring him into this. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I've got a concern I got to bring up, which is we're going to be going through an absolute revolution in zoning in the city of Beaverton with residential. And I think we've got to dovetail what's going to be coming through the community development department with this, because the danger I think we have here is we could get deep into the weeds on this with a whole bunch of verbiage and then find out that none of that data is going to be valid when it comes down to the actual execution of the zoning, especially in residential. Types 2 and 3, you know, when it's commercial, that's going to be that's going to stand. But residential is going to be a complete reversal of what people are used to.
So Terry, I would be interested, but I would work with you. I cannot work by myself on this, and I cannot do everything in a month either. So is that some helpful? And
Yeah,
and I
that's
like
great.
what who was this who just spoke?
Rick?
Oh, Rick, I found you. And I think that's something we need to consider, right? To figure out what's actually coming down the drain there with the zoning.
Yeah. On the
Go ahead, somebody. Did somebody have a comment?
That Frosty, you kind of went, your voice went weird.
Frosty, you froze.
Oh, yeah, I'm in Arizona, so it's a little challenging internet here.
So what were you saying?
No, I was commenting about down the drain. That was very, very, very good description of what's happening in some cases.
So it sounds like what Terry wants is help in any aspect of this. Like Birgit, she has some expertise and she might need some hand-holding on something. Anybody who's willing to work with Terry in any aspect of this in any degree, I'm sure Terry would appreciate.
Yes.
Can I say one thing?
Go ahead, Jim.
I was wondering, Terry, if maybe we should get together with just the land use committee and maybe work on one of these as a group and try to figure out how we do it. Because I sit there and look at it and not any idea what kind of format to use. And then we could bring an example back to BCCI showing that this is what we were trying to do. And pick one that, you know, has to do with appeals or something like that. But I think we need to, the group needs to come up with something first before just trying to get everybody to do their own thing. And, you know, we don't even know how to do it exactly. Or you might, but you know, I'm not sure. And, you know, Eric didn't seem sure. So I was just wondering if something like that might work better. And
I think-
also, I agree that the timeline is probably a month isn't gonna work, but actually, it's only March. I mean, we have at least a couple months, I would think. So,
I think that's a great idea, Jim. Is everybody else on the land use, who wants to be on the land use subcommittee? Do we have a Rick, Deborah, Steve, Gary, Eric, Matt, and Jim.
yeah.
Jonathan? No? You're on
Not right
board.
now.
Okay, that's cool. All right. I have, just to make sure, I have Eric, Konnette, Rick, Deborah, Steve, Gary, and Jim. Did I miss Sharon? Sharon, did you? No, no Sharon?
I'll continue with you. I'm on events already, but.
Oh, okay. All right.
But you and I have been working in the background on this, so I will continue to kind of lurk.
Okay, cool.
And I reserve the right to lurk as well. Thank you.
All right. We will include you in the email. That's really what happens to lurkers or actives.
I don't think I'm alone in admitting this. I'm just going to put it out there. I've been to many land use trainings, and it is probably the one thing about this city that I struggle to understand. So examples would be good. I think Jim has it right on the money. This might be a committee thing. This might be a collaboration brainstorming thing before we get down to brass tacks, where we can hold Birgit in to make sure it all works.
Okay,
so
great.
Maybe an update next month. See what's
Sounds
going on.
good. Well, hopefully we can have an example by next month. That would be our goal. All right, thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Okay, and if you will all indulge me just for a few minutes, I know we're past our time, but on February 9th, we had a brainstorming session with sort of the executive committee of BCCI. And, sorry? Okay. And it was sort of, we decided where we want BCCI to go this year. In-person events are not something we can count on, so we said, okay, let's step back. Maybe this is just a year where we delve deep into education. Maybe we step back and just hear presentations and hear from the different people in the city that we wouldn't normally hear from, people that are affected with current events right now, and do a deep delve into learning. And I think that's a great idea. I think everyone on this committee has a different level of education with a lot of things, myself included. And so I think we could all benefit from this, and we could all be better community members and better committee members based on this. So we got a lot of ideas about having speakers in throughout the year. Go ahead and put it in the chat, or if you want to just shout it out. If there's anybody that has, you want to hear from a specific department or person or policy, something like that, if you want to put that on our radar so we can schedule that. We have a lot of ideas already. We have the police chief, Mike Luma, who is the emergency coordinator, someone from Beaverton School District, affordable housing, hearing from the actual temporary city manager himself. That was just a few things. We have a long list, but we want to hear from you. What, as committee members and as community members, would you like to hear from this year?
Kevin Teeter.
I'm sorry?
Kevin Teeter, Downtown Beaverton Association.
Okay. And I see sustainability in there as well. Anyone else?
We also had on our list, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Chair, somebody from the Performing Arts Center.
We did. Pat Reeser, an update on the Pat Reeser Center.
Right.
We have a big list, but we want this time to be really valuable to you and to your neighborhood. So if you have any ideas, email or call, put it in the chat. And it's not a one-time thing. If you think of something 6 months from now, we want to hear. Go ahead, Frosty. Frosty?
with the new police, yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? With the new police and safety center, how about Michael Munyar with the CERT program? Because how they're doing with the new facility and what plans they have now that they have a secure facility, what's going on? We had that in the September about 3 or 4 years ago. So maybe it's time for an update.
But everything is colored with a new lens right now. That was a lot of my ideas were, here's this department, here's what they're doing. Well, how is that different right now? How has that changed? Okay, so please keep an open mind and please keep the ideas coming. Tonight's not the only night. You can message any of us at any time. We want to hear from you. The other thing we're going to do is ask for NAC reports. So if your NAC had something really significant happen in months prior, we're not going to do a roundtable where I call on every NAC, but I'll take like hands to say, here's my NAC. This is really something significant going on in my NAC, and I think BCCI as a whole needs to hear that. So we're going to make time for that this year in our reports. And other than that, we want to make this time really valuable for you and your community members. So please make this year, we can make it what we want. Let's make it valuable. Okay, does anyone have any other comments or questions about that? Then I'll turn it over to Lani for the update.
I was just looking at the clock, so I was thinking I could email that out to everyone, and then that way we can end on time. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Looks like people are nodding their heads. Sorry for going over, but I think traffic calming kind of hit a nerve, and we had a lot to say about it, which is amazing. I love to see that. All right, Sharon, quickly, actionable events.
Okay, I'm going to try and go through this quickly. So what I caught was number one, please check out the State of the City video that's going to be on March 4th. There's going to be time with Lacey and time with Allison to check in with them about, you know, just connecting. And Lacey will have 15-minute spots that she's dedicating to this. Traffic calming. Number one, we need stats. Jabra will get back to us after investigating that. On the 4th of March at 7 p.m., there's a Traffic Commission workshop. Please send ideas to Jabra, which he will forward on to the Traffic Commission, or you can send ideas to Terry on behalf of BCCI input on this that will also go to Traffic Commission. Number 4 is the Natural Gardening Highland series to include other NACs will be on Mondays. And personally, I'm going to race Birgit to the front of the line on that one because I missed it before and I love this topic since I'm a backyard habitat certification in progress. It'll be on Zoom. Think of ways to advertise and get those ways of advertising to Lani. Number 5, under events on April 29th is the Voters Forum. We're looking at co-sponsors. Eric's to contact Kathleen tomorrow for League of Women Voters. I took this upon myself. You still want some questions, I'm assuming. And if so, send them to Lani, correct? Because
right.
I did not hear that being mentioned per se, so.
We have questions, Sharon. We have a treasure trove of questions for City Council. Where I'm really going to need questions is for the Park District candidates.
Right. Okay. Thank you. The deadline for the postcard is March 10th. So take a look at that when that's able to be looked at. And number 6 is under land use. 2 documents to review. One is your NAC and land use involvement. The other is the 2021 work plan. As your resources, there's new content that is where a link is lacking. So volunteers, let Terry know. I think she's already gotten quite a few that are going to be on the land use committee helping with that. And basically it's just moving content and restructuring the document. So take a look at that. The timeline has been increased and We will update and use examples in next month's meeting. Number 7, the executive committee brainstormed, and if you have any speakers or ideas, please let Lani know about that. There will be NAC reports at the end of our meetings now. And the city update will be emailed out. So take a look at that when it comes.
Thank you, Sharon. You're our rock star. I think we're going to conclude. It's been an honor spending this time with you. Thank you so much. Keep the communication lines open, and I will see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
everybody.